Good morning, dear friends. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook. Thank you. One more time. Good morning, dear friends. Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook, located on traditional ancestral land of the Sitalkat people. All of us roomies here in the sanctuary send greetings to all of you Zoomies who are joining us online with a big wave. My name is Laura Lesh, and I am so happy to be your worship associate on this lovely, well, a little overcast spring morning. It's supposed to be lovely later. Along with our service leader and director of religious education, Deb Little. Our interim minister, the Reverend Dr. Madeline Campbell, will be back with us next week. Deb has prepared a service for us today about the importance of working for peace if we want to protect the interconnected web of life. For those of you who don't already know her, here are some fun facts about Deb. She went to college, then law school, and then graduate school. I think she really likes to go to school. Her dad gave her a graduation gift with each degree she earned, but after she got her PhD in sociology, he asked plaintively if this would be her final degree. Deb has worked as a legal aid lawyer, a college professor, and a director of religious education, all because she believes that our faith calls us to save the world. She is engaged in social justice work with some of the rest of you for decades. Please plan to remain after our service this morning for coffee, snacks, and conversation. In addition, for all of you here, please take a moment to sign our thank you and farewell card for Pastor Madeline. She isn't leaving yet, but we want to offer you a chance to sign the card secretly while she's not here. The card is in the gratitude book, which is on the stand in the back in that corner. So you can do that during coffee hour. For those of us who are online, if you sign on after the service and return to our website, you'll find the link for joining our small group chats. Whether in here or online, you'll find friendly folks who can answer any questions you may have. I do have one request for those of you here who want to come forward to light a candle of joy or sorrow during our service. Once your candle is lit, please place it in the tray starting from the back and working forward. This will make it easier and safer for everyone else. As we begin our time of worship together, allow your mind to clear and your heart to open as we listen to the sound of our bell.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. And where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Children pick them, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
Where have all the children gone? Long time passing. Where have all the children gone? Long time ago. Where have all the children gone? Gone to soldiers, everyone. When will they ever learn?
soldiers gone a long time ago? Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone to graveyards, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Gone to flowers, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn?
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Children, pick them, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
This morning's call to worship comes from the invocation for difficult times. When all around us voices are raised in anger, hatred, spilling into the streets and sparking more hatred, sometimes the best we can do is to sink our hands into the soil. Fill your fingers with dirt that is itself the product of rocks worn to powder over millennia. That was a comment on the wearing of the rocks. Leavened with particles of other lives, lives of leaves and vegetables and other animals, once as warm and active as you are now. This is real. The sun warm on your back, the soil cool under your bare feet, a tiny new stem that will unfurl to grow a sweet red tomato, and the hand of a friend gently helping you to rise. Even on our most difficult days, we can touch the soil and be grateful for the earth and the love that sustains us.
Melissa Johnson and her daughter Tate will come forward to light our chalice this morning as I read these words by Summer al-Bayati. Lighting this chalice may feel difficult today. This symbol of justice, known to be a light of hope for the marginalized, a message of sanctuary for the oppressed, is a flame that feels lost or diminished somehow. How do we rekindle this fire of compassion? How do we rekindle this fire of mercy? A famous verse within the Quran tells us, with hardship comes ease. With hardship comes ease. We welcome the ease, O Spirit of justice. We welcome the ease, O Spirit of love. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame from our tears, our quiet suffering, from our collective prayers for those who cry for freedom. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame on behalf of those who feel abandoned and betrayed. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame for all the children who ask, why can we not live in peace as other children do? May lighting this chalice today, no matter how difficult it may feel, help us to rekindle compassion and mercy within the deep crevices of our hearts, so that we can, once again, bring justice and peace to a world struggling to find its humanity, struggling to find its soul. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our first hymn this morning, number 162 in your gray hymnal, Gonna Lay Down My Sword and Shield. That's number 162.
Good morning. My name is Wendy Engelhardt, and I'm honored to share with you the tale for all ages today. It's entitled, When the War Came, written by Nicola Davies and illustrated by Rebecca Cobb. The day the war came, there were flowers on the windowsill, and my father sang my baby brother back to sleep. My mother made my breakfast and kissed my nose and walked me to school. That morning, I learned about volcanoes, and I sang a song about tadpoles, how they turn at last into frogs. I drew a picture of a bird, and then just after lunch, war came. At first, just like a spattering of hail, a voice of thunder, then all smoke and fire and noise that I didn't understand. It came across the playground. It came into my teacher's face. It brought the roof down and turned my town to rubble. I can't say the words that tell you about the blackened hole that had been my home. All I can say is this. War took everything. War took everyone. I was ragged and bloody, all alone. I ran, walked over fields and roads and mountains in the cold and mud and rain, rode on the backs of trucks and in buses, went on a boat that leaked and almost sank, then up a beach where shoes lay empty in the sand. I ran until I couldn't run, until I reached a row of huts and found a corner with a dirty blanket and a door that rattled in the wind. But the war had followed me. It was underneath my skin and behind my eyes and in my dreams. It had taken possession of my heart. I walked and tried to drive war out of myself, to try to find a place it hadn't reached. But war was in the way that doors shut when I came down the street, in the way that people didn't smile and turned away. I came to a school. I looked in through the window, and they were learning all about volcanoes and singing and drawing birds. I went inside. My footsteps echoed in the halls. I pushed the door open and faces turned toward me, but the teacher didn't smile. She said, "There's no room for you, see? There's no chair for you to sit on. You have to go away." And then I understood that war had gotten there too. I turned around and went back to the hut, the corner, and the blanket, and crawled inside. It seemed that war had taken all the world and all the people in it. The door banged, and I thought it was the wind again, but a child's voice spoke. "I brought you this," he said, "so you can come to school." It was a chair for me to sit on and learn about volcanoes and to sing and to draw birds and drive the war out of my heart. He smiled and said, "My friends have brought theirs too. So all the children here can come to school." Out of every hut, a child came, and we walked together on a road lined with chairs, pushing back the war with every step. Thank you. Please open your hymnals to the inside cover, where you'll find the Reeves Children benediction. Children, please bring your chairs back to the back door. Will Rachel and Carrie and the teachers please lead our children back to the RE. Our 5th and 8th graders can follow Deborah Gale and Garrett back to the yellow room, and the youth group will meet at 12:15. After all have gathered some food from our coffee hour.
As we enter our meditation time, I will begin with words from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Then we will sit together in silence for a minute. We will break our silence by singing a new song written by Margie Allen, the lyrics, and Peter Winkler, the music. Peter will play through the song one time, and the words are in a handout with your order of service. If you did not receive it, there's probably more in the foyer. Otherwise, it's also online. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech against the Vietnam War on April 4th, 1967, at the Riverside Church in New York City. He spoke about the entwined harms of poverty, racism, and militarism. He challenged all people of faith to speak out and take action to end these evils. At the end of his speech, he imagined the world that could be. While he spoke from his Christian faith, I would like you to hear the words Unitarian Universalist faith each time the word faith is repeated. So I invite you to take a comfortable position, maybe close your eyes and listen. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our world into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to speed up the day when justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. With this faith, we will be able to speed up the day when the lion and the lamb will lie down together and every person will sit under their own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid. With this faith, we will be able to speed up the day when all over the world we will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. With this faith, we'll sing it as we're getting ready to sing it now. Men will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and nations will not rise up against nations, neither shall they study war anymore. And I don't know about you, but I ain't gonna study war no more.
During each service, we pause to take an offering which we share with a local organization working for a more just future. This month, we once again honor Earth Day by sharing our plate with the Brookhaven Landfill Action and Remediation Group, better known as BLARG. For the past few years, this congregation has partnered with BLARG in support of their efforts to expose, close, and rectify the harm done by the Brookhaven landfill to the surrounding, mostly poor communities of color. Our past support has helped BLARG to organize a community garden in North Bellport, start a community composting program, develop their website, and most especially to advocate at every level of government for the closure and cleanup of the landfill and the development of a sustainable plan for waste management on Long Island. Let's do our part by supporting their tireless work, which benefits all of us. We can all reduce, reuse, and recycle. And right now, we can all give generously to BLARG and to this fellowship. You may make your gifts here in the plate or online through our UUFSB.org website. For those online, the link to donate is in the chat now. Your donations will be gratefully received and well used. Thank you.
The cherub and the Virgin Mary, the Buddha and the garden gnome, all the garden statuary talked in spring of how things grow. Said from compassion, and Mary said the Lord above. Gnome replied it must be magic. Cherub sighed it must be love. And it rained then in the garden, and they all stood round and witnessed in stillness and listened to that lovely sound. And St. Francis in the corner spoke about the gathering. Well, peace, he said, is most important. Peace for all the living things. And the stars burned, and the earth turned, and the sun shone down. And they knew then in the garden life was stirring in the warming ground. And St. Francis stood entranced as the cherub watched beguiled. Gnome's hands lay on his sharp spade. Mary gave thanks
Thank you, musicians. That is absolutely one of my favorite songs. Thank you for being here today. I'm very grateful. So, as I said, in 1967, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. challenged us to fight against the three scourges of poverty, racism, and militarism. If we judge by the results today, 55 years later, we haven't done a great job. While all three harms are important and are interconnected, today I'm going to focus on militarism and its relationship to our interconnected web. So my thinking about this topic began when I read about some research that demonstrated the environmental harm of the conflict in Gaza. I then sought out research on the environmental damage occurring in Ukraine. In fact, there's very little research available. Instead, as journalists asking the same questions discovered in 2022, researchers have focused on the impact of climate change on the military, but not the reverse. Today, I want to think with you about the role of U.S. militarism in global warming and the destruction of our interconnected web of all existence. In Gaza, preliminary research found that the climate warming emissions from the first 2 months of the conflict in 2023 were greater than the climate emissions of more than 20 of the world's most climate vulnerable nations in a year. Over 99% of the carbon dioxide generated during this period came from Israel's aerial bombardment and ground invasion of Gaza. But this is not the whole story. Israel's military has been heavily reliant on imported aircraft, guided bombs, and missiles during their attacks. 69% of Israel's arms imports between 2019 and 2020, I'm a little nervous, and 2023 have come from the United States. Almost half of the total emissions in the first 2 months of the conflict came from our U.S. cargo planes flying military supplies to Israel. Of course, Hamas also fired rockets into Israel during this period, but Israel and the U.S. generated the equivalent of burning 150,000 tons of coal. Hamas generated approximately 300 tons of coal, or 2% of the amount generated by the U.S. and Israel. In Gaza, the extent of environmental damage is astronomical. As of the end of March 2024, satellite imagery shows that almost 50% of tree cover has been damaged or destroyed. Approximately 40% of farms and orchards, as well as a third of greenhouses, have been destroyed. The newspaper The Guardian reports the following. Olive groves and farms have been reduced to packed earth. Soil and groundwater have been contaminated by munitions and toxins. The sea is choked with sewage and waste. The air polluted by smoke and particulate matter. Some around the world are calling this ecocide, and we are equally complicit. So let's look at Ukraine, the other big war on our planet at the moment. This conflict began in February 2022. It's impossible to actually distinguish among the sources of environmental damage there because weapons are being used by Russia and Ukraine, and multiple countries are supplying each side. That said, however, the U.S. offered an unprecedented amount of military aid in the first 7 months, putting Ukraine on par with the top 20 countries worldwide by military spending. A new package of aid was just authorized by Congress and the President. Executives of major U.S. defense contractors are bragging about how they are profiting from arming Ukraine. Environmental damage during the first year of war in Ukraine includes air pollution, ground and water contamination from the bombing of industrial and chemical factories, and soil contamination. The Russians have attacked much of Ukraine's farmland where they grow the grains that are sent to the world, right? And especially the fertile soil in the south and east. Mines or missiles, fuel and lubricants from military vehicles, and combustion products are all leading to chemical contamination of Ukraine's soils. Harmful substances can migrate into the plants growing on that land, so food can become poison for those who consume it. Now, what is our role, the U.S. role, in this horrific destruction of Mother Earth, and why do we keep destroying our own planet? I don't want to talk at you about data, but there are a few things we all need to know, I believe. The climate is warming, we know. We're experiencing the consequences in the form of heat waves, storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding, drought, melting ice caps, rising sea levels, volcanoes, mudslides, and even here on Long Island, earthquakes. The burning of carbon dioxide and methane in our transportation, agricultural, and industrial systems, primarily from fossil fuels, are the main drivers of climate warming. But wars also drive climate change. There are, at present, about 193 countries in the world, according to the UN. The US has more than 170,000 troops deployed in 159 of those countries. We have military bases in 80 countries, and the number of bases is not 80. It's at least 750, or roughly 9 bases per country. The US spends more on military spending than the next 10 countries combined. In 2020, we spent $778 billion on the military, and that number has increased a lot this year. China ranked second at $252 billion, about a third, right? Russia was fourth. The US is also the largest arms dealer in the world. Since the end of the Cold War, we have provided about 40% of all arms exported each year. We say that we are funding democracy, but we actually provide arms to at least 57%, or more than half, of the countries universally identified as autocracies. Now, you might not be surprised by any of this. The US has been steadily increasing its military presence throughout the world since the end of World War II. It serves as the world's arms dealer and the world's most harmful military environmental polluter. While estimates are that the world's militaries are responsible for about 6% of overall global greenhouse emissions, the US military is the single largest institutional source of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. I want to say that again. The US military is the single largest institutional source of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. I did not know that when I started working on this service. However, even worse, we don't know the true amount of emissions because countries, nation states, are not required to report the emissions of their militaries. Why not? So there's some data from what is out there, but the overall extent of emissions is not known. And why not? The US and the UK fought for a military exemption to reporting on greenhouse gases in the Paris Climate Agreement. And of course, they got that. Now, it is absurd, I think, to harm with one hand while you feed the harm monster with the other. Our government is taking, state and national, is taking action in the civil sector to reduce emissions and to reach net zero, we hope. But so what? So long as we continue our military emissions, we will continue to warm the planet. So I think it's a big lie to commit to climate agreements while we continue to fuel the military. Why do I care? Well, I have kids. No grandkids, but great nieces and nephews. I'm certainly connected to all of the wonderful children, your children, in this fellowship, and I'm connected to many other children. Moreover, I believe that our faith calls us to work for peace and to heal the interdependent web. I'm horrified by the level of violence happening in the world and the level of killing of innocents. Under the title of my thoughts today, on the second page of the order of service, maybe if you turn it over, you'll see, there is an image of a sculpture called 7 Generations. It was created by Frederick Frank. Actually, our friends Greg and Dixie introduced me to this sculpture. It is sitting in Warwick, New York, where they live. Now, a small plaque at the base of the largest figure of 7 Generations reads, "In all our deliberations, we must be mindful of the impact of decisions on the next 7 generations." That comes from the great law of the Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy. This is a principle we humans rarely follow. It seems to me that most of us have given up on the hope of peace, believing that war is always inevitable. In fact, when I told a person in this congregation that I wanted to talk about peace and that the UU was thinking about adding peace as one of the values, the person said, "Oh, everyone wants peace." Not so sure about that. Now, some people blame human nature as they understand it, and others blame systems like capitalism or racism. But the belief that war is inevitable keeps us, I believe, from doing real work for peace. The words peace come out of every politician's mouth, but their actions mostly support war. You can't make change if you can't imagine it. Now, we UUs are working on a new version of our commitments to the world and each other. We've had 7 principles for a long time, and the 6th principle speaks specifically about our commitment to world peace. But the principles do not ask us to take action, to actually live our faith. The new proposed version of Article 2 of the UUA bylaws changes this and calls us to go beyond belief to action. But peace is not one of the new values. Have we UUs also accepted that peace is impossible, that war is inevitable? Article 2 is not yet final, so this may change. I hope so. Meanwhile, I had a very difficult time finding writings or readings or sermons about the 6th principle as I prepared my thoughts. The most developed information came from a 2010 statement of conscience called Creating Peace. This statement was voted on by UUA members at the 2010 General Assembly, our national meeting of Unitarian Universalists. And the statement began as follows: "We believe all people share a moral responsibility to create peace. Mindful of both our rich heritage and our past failures to prevent war, and enriched by our present diversity of experience and perspective, we commit ourselves to a radically inclusive and transformative approach to peace." This statement called us to create peace as a matter of moral responsibility. And our theology offered a source for this responsibility. We were reminded that our universalist faith says that we humans are one family, so peace is necessary, while our Unitarian belief in the sacred potential of each person tells us that peace is possible. So peace was both necessary and possible, or at least UUs thought so in 2010. The statement defined peace as a process rather than a static state, a process built on just relationships between individuals, communities, towns, nation states. Part of the work of creating peace, they said, is negotiating equitable and sustainable peace agreements, while also intervening early to prevent war, stop genocide, and monitor ceasefires. Are these not some of the demands coming from Americans right now, especially young people, as we consider our role in two large conflicts? Aside from the young people, however, our commitment to peace seems further away than ever. We are told that self-defense justifies revenge and that peace and democracy are ensured with an infusion of military weapons. Up is down, and our rhetoric makes no sense. Nonetheless, we must have peace if our interconnected web is to survive. We must have a healthy interconnected web if we humans are to survive. So what are we to do? Now, coincidentally, as I was doing the final work on this yesterday, I got an email from the South Country Peace Group. You know, the universe, right? We have both a North Country and a South Country Peace Group in Suffolk County. And the email actually seemed to speak to me directly, saying, if you, like many of us, are feeling frustrated and scared and anxious about the state of the world and the U.S. role, you might find relief from joining with others that care and have the will to promote change and act for peace. So yes, what are we to do? Find others and work with them. Working in community is the antidote to frustration, fear, and anxiety. You know I'm going to say this, so you can go ahead and sigh right now. We need to engage constantly with our elected officials, regardless of party affiliation. Call them, write them, visit them, go with others. It feels better. Ask questions and get answers about the true level of harm our military is causing in terms of gas emissions. Demand that the military report all the emissions. Push for diplomacy, not weapons in war. Demand a reduction in our military budget. The budget was actually declining until a couple of years ago. Join a peace group, North Country, South Country, work with them. You may have noticed that I began this service with peace songs and then I turned to garden songs. So you get it, right? This music speaks to my dreams for all of us living on this planet. Yes, I urge you to engage politically. One email a week is pretty easy, and you can just keep sending the same one because they don't read it, they just count. Yes, no, right? Trust me. But I also beg you to help heal our interconnected web. This work is joyful mostly in itself. I hate weeding, but the rest, pure joy. Heal Mother Earth. Today, our children are learning about the Kenyan Nobel Peace Prize winner, Wangari Maathai. You may know of her. She led a reforestation movement in her country called the Green Belt Movement. Now, I get it, we can't all reforest a country, but we can all speak out against deforestation and we can plant trees. If you cut down a tree, plant another one, or maybe two. There are international nonprofits that are planting trees all over the world. Look up One Tree Planted for $10. You can have 10 trees planted, and you can choose where they go around the world. Teach our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to love the earth, its forests and meadows and swamps and oceans and rivers and soil, and plant gardens everywhere you can. On your porch, in your yard, in a community, in a neighborhood garden. Gardens bring flowers and food and oxygen and joy. Amen. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our final hymn, The Garden. Many of you know this as Inch by Inch. The words are with your order of service, and then please remain as you are for the benediction. Peter is?
I'm going to play
Dan-
the melody through once.
Yep, there.
And then you'll all join in.
Oh, yes, please, let's applaud for all of them. Every week we gather in this beautiful space to find peace. Each week, words and music offer and celebrate peace with the hope of instilling it in us. Now, take the peace you have found here back out into the world with you. Renewed in our faith and inspired to act, let us be the peacemakers the world aches for. And by being peacemakers, let us find the peace we long for. Go in peace, make peace, be at peace. Please be seated. And as we extinguish our chalice flame, our worship has ended and our service begins. I invite you all to wave goodbye to the people online.